terms seems to give us 10 years of so-called peace before then putting us in an even worse position than we are today a decade from now. And that is tonight's commentary from the Edge. Okay, joining me this time to offer insight and analysis is the founder of the Israel Group, Barry Nussbaum. Very good to see you.
Thanks. Nice to be with you.
And joining us from Washington, D.C. is National Security Analyst Frank Gaffney. Mr. Gaffney previously served in the Department of Defense under President Ronald Reagan. Frank, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rick.
Frank, let's start with you. It seems that now even the Russians, who, by the way, are longtime supporters, longtime friends of the Iranian nuclear program, are against this deal. Why are the Russians now against it? And how do you think this will play out in terms of impacting President Obama in the negotiations?
I must tell you, Rick, I don't think they're against it. They may be playing for some further concessions on behalf of their Iranian clients, or there may be some other game. They may be just trying to stick it to President Obama. There's a lot of that going on in Vladimir Putin's Kremlin these days, as you may have noticed. But I think the bigger point is I would just suggest respectfully that your opening gives the benefit of the doubt to the idea that we'll at least buy 10 years between whenever this agreement is finalized and when Iran breaks out and has a nuclear capability, a nuclear weapons capability, that is. I don't think it's going to be anything like 10 years. If they don't already have them, I suspect that they will in short order. And that's what's particularly troubling about this. All of the concessions that have been made by the president in order to get this will-o'-the-wisp legacy are creating conditions under which I believe we will see not only Israel and other more or less friends of ours in the region, but the United States itself at risk from this Iranian nuclear program well within the next 10 years.
As you say, Frank Gaffney, 10 years is a best case optimistic scenario. What jumps out at you as being the one or two worst aspects of this deal from what you understand as it is currently?
Well, there's a lot in it, and it keeps getting worse by the day as we see them haggling in the end game. I think that the biggest concern I have is that there is absolutely no certainty we've even properly bounded what is the nuclear program of Iran. They've now acknowledged and apparently agreed that they can keep this facility that's deeply buried. They call it Fordow. My guess is that there are other such facilities in Iran that we don't know about that will also continue to be enriching uranium or manufacturing warheads or putting them into place in ballistic missiles. We just don't know. But in addition to that, there apparently is reason to believe that the Iranians have squirreled away some of their nuclear capabilities and assets in places like North Korea and perhaps Syria. Now, this means that we simply don't have our hands around this problem at all. And I think that's of concern to, of course, our Israeli friends, but also it should be to everyone here as well.
Let's turn to Barry Nussbaum of the Israel Group. Barry, before we came on the show, I want you to share something with our viewers. You were telling me that your sources are telling you that a deal has already been reached.
Yeah, that's what we're hearing, Rick, that the deal is done. And as Frank just mentioned, this is sort of theatrics around it so that people want it to happen and hope it will happen. The reality is the deal is made. And historically, as Frank mentioned, everything that we were promised a year ago when this started has been walked back. In the beginning, there were going to be no centrifuges. In the beginning, there was going to be no storage of nuclear fuel. In the beginning, there was going to be full inspection of all sites. In the beginning, Fordow wasn't going to exist anymore. It was going to be a research facility, or it was going to be completely closed down. Every single key item that looks like is going to be in the deal wasn't supposed to be in the deal in the beginning.
What do you expect Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel's response to be if indeed this does go through as it appears to be? We certainly don't expect them to sit by idly.
No, I would agree with that completely. You have to keep in mind that weekly, for maybe 30 years, the death to Israel, death to America chants have been led in Tehran, usually by the supreme leader. As we talked about last week, it happened last week in Iran. Death to America was led by members of the governing council. What would you expect Israel to do under those circumstances? I guess the wild card, Rick.
So what do you expect them to do?
The U.S. Congress is the wild card. Just this week, members of Congress are there in Israel showing solidarity with Netanyahu's government and with Israel, saying they will stand by Israel. They will make sure that sanctions will be reinstituted if full compliance with whatever the deal is, especially on inspections, doesn't happen. That's the wild card. And how Congress reacts, I think, is going to greatly influence Israel.
And related to that, Frank Gaffney, the U.S. Senate last Friday voted 100-0 to stand with Israel on this, to hold sanctions accountable to Iran if they violate this agreement. What is your take on that vote?
Well, it's a good thing, of course, and I commend those members of Congress who are in Israel expressing similar kinds of sentiments. It's just that, going back to what I said earlier, Rick, if we don't know what they've got, how on earth are we going to be able to verify what they are doing or not doing? I mean, this is a fool's errand, and I'm afraid that what we're buying into, really, at this point, is a deal that simply legitimates the Iranian nuclear program. And that makes the choice for Israel that much more difficult. It makes it that much more problematic for the Congress to do anything about it. Long before there is a new president who may think better of this arrangement, I'm afraid we're going to be reaping the whirlwind of this deal.
All right, well, listen, troubling times. This is a very disturbing development with Iran and the Obama administration. I want to thank National Security Frank Gaffney for joining me and Barry Nussbaum for the Israel Group.
Good to be with you.
All right, so Iran has been quite clear, as you know, about its intent.